Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and once again, Apple has announced a brand new product with just a website refresh and a press release. Of course, I am referring to the brand new 13-inch MacBook Pro, now finally with a Magic Keyboard. And because there's no event, I'm going to do my best for you to give you all the relevant information on this brand new 13-inch MacBook Pro, and also some hidden things I've noticed that Apple isn't so upfront about. And of course, some buying, ordering, and configuration advice at the end of this video. Now, before I get into this video, I have to give a quick plug to the prophet of Apple at this point, John Prosser. He, again, nailed this MacBook Pro 13-inch release date like an hour before it went out. So if you are subscribed to my channel and you aren't following John Prosser or subscribed to Front Page Tech, number one, what's wrong with you? But if you aren't, go ahead and do it now, and you will get all of the latest Apple information literally days or hours before it happens. All right, though, so what's new about this 13-inch MacBook Pro? First of all, this is a pretty similar design to the old 13-inch MacBook Pro with just a few adjustments here or there. The biggest design change is, of course, that brand new Magic Keyboard that is now across the entire lineup of MacBooks. All the way from the lowest cost MacBook Air to the most expensive 16-inch MacBook Pro, Apple has finally fixed their long-standing keyboard issues, and Mac laptop fans can breathe a big sigh of relief. The Magic Keyboard, for those that aren't in the know, is a traditional scissor switch mechanism with 1mm of travel, and just like the 16-inch MacBook Pro, this 13-inch MacBook Pro has a physical escape key with the touch bar and inverted T-arrow keys. And with this release, this spells a definitive and final end to the butterfly keyboard saga. Rest in peace, little keyboard, rest in peace. Now, even though the Magic Keyboard is really the only notable design change, there actually is two smaller ones that you might not have caught, because there is a slight hidden change in the new 13-inch models, and that is that these are slightly heavier and thicker than the previous 2019 version. So the old MacBook Pro weighed in at 3.02 pounds and was 14.99 millimeters thick. The new 2020 13-inch model weighs in at just a slightly heavier 3.1 pounds and is now 15.6 millimeters thick. Unlike the 16-inch MacBook Pro, I am not seeing Apple say that they incorporated a better thermal design into this smaller laptop. This weight and thickness difference probably comes down to the addition of the new Magic Keyboard, as it requires more travel and probably weighs just a bit more than the butterfly model. And these little slight differences are why you come to watch a Greg's Gadgets video. We are certainly digging in the weeds here. Now, one thing I'm not all that sure of is if there was a change to the speakers and microphone in the 13-inch MacBook Pro. In the press release and in the website refresh, Apple seems to kind of talk about how these MacBook Pros have a wider stereo sound, and they also say that they have a 3-microphone array. Now, that is very different than the language that they use to describe the 16-inch MacBook Pro speakers and the 16-inch MacBook Pro studio quality microphone. So I would assume that these speakers and microphone are probably more similar to the MacBook Air, and the language here seems to be pretty similar. Now, besides the addition of a Magic Keyboard, the second biggest revision to this laptop line is the new 10th generation Intel CPUs. So now you can get the option on the higher-end MacBook Pro 13-inch for a 2 GHz quad-core 10th generation Intel i5 processor, all the way up to a 2.3 GHz quad-core 10th generation i7. Apple says you will see 2.8 times faster performance if you're upgrading from a 13-inch MacBook Pro with a dual-core processor. Also, just like the brand new MacBook Airs, this MacBook Pro now gets double the base storage of their previous models at the same price point. So the entry-level model now comes with a 256GB SSD, which starts at $1,299, and then of course you can get a 512GB SSD starting on the 4 Thunderbolt 3 option at $1,799. Also, these MacBook Pros can now be configured up to 4 terabytes of SSD storage. Apple is also adding faster graphics performance with the Intel Iris Plus integrated graphics. Apple is saying that this will get up to 80% faster graphics performance. Also, it can now connect to the 6K Apple Pro Display XDR. The new 2020 MacBook Pro also gets faster RAM and more of it. So the new MacBook Pro comes with 3,733 megahertz RAM, starting at 16 gigabytes for the $1,799 model, and you can upgrade that all the way up to 32 gigabytes of RAM. A fully loaded out MacBook Pro with a 2.3 gigahertz quad-core i7 processor, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and 4 terabytes of storage will cost you $3,599. Now, there are a few takeaways here you need to know before we proceed. First of all, the new processors, graphics, and RAM are only available on the 4 Thunderbolt configuration, the one that starts at $1,799. And yes, while the entry-level $1,299 Pro does come with double the storage than the previous model and the new Magic Keyboard, it does not come with the 10th generation processors, no new graphics, the RAM is still 2,133 megahertz in the speed, and you cannot configure it up to 32 gigabytes of RAM. You are still limited at 16 gigabytes. And that is something you really have to be made aware of. The entry-level MacBook Pro, the one at the most attractive price point, is just getting the new Magic Keyboard basically. Almost everything else inside of that machine is the same as the 2019 model. It is still shipping with 8th generation Intel CPUs. Okay, let's talk about some of these configurations and maybe some recommendations I would make if you're purchasing a MacBook Pro. Again, I do not have this. This is not a review of the product. I'm just trying to help some of the people who might be in the ordering stages of this who do not want to wait for a full review. So hopefully this information is helpful to you. First of all, I think the storage configurations on all of these models makes a lot more sense. 256 gigabytes for starting is so much easier to recommend than the 128 gigabyte models we used to have. But it is a little disappointing we aren't seeing performance upgrades on the lowest end model. I would say though that in my previous videos I recommended the i7 MacBook Air as a replacement for this entry-level 13-inch MacBook Pro because the MacBook Air had the new keyboard at the time, and I said that the 13-inch MacBook Pro would be quickly updated, so you should wait for that. Well, now that's true, and maybe my opinion might be shifted. I think the i5 version of the entry-level MacBook Pro might make more sense than the i7 version of the MacBook Air. Because this entry-level MacBook Pro should be better for sustained performance over that i7 MacBook Air, and when you upgrade the MacBook Air with the i7 processor, it's only $50 cheaper than this entry-level MacBook Pro. However, the entry-level does not have the newest processors, and when I get this new 2020 MacBook Pro actually here, I will be doing a direct comparison between the entry-level model and the new i5 versions on the higher end configurations. All right, let's actually talk about the new model of the MacBook Pro, the 4 Thunderbolt configuration one at $1,799. So again, this now starts at a 512 gigabyte SSD, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and a quad-core i5 processor. Honestly, I think this configuration is respectable now. It gives you a good amount of storage, a good amount of RAM, and what hopefully looks like good performance with those new 10th generation processors. Also, we should note the cheaper upgrade options for storage as well, so just spending an extra $200 gets you double the storage at 1 terabyte, which is something you should consider if you're storing a lot of video, photo, or games on this device. And if you plan on keeping this MacBook Pro for the long haul, that extra $200 investment into 1 terabyte of storage makes a lot of sense. As for the RAM, I think 16 gigabytes is good enough for most people, but if you are RAM constrained now and you know your workflows, that 32 gigabytes is very tempting for an upgrade for video editors or people who have like 100 Chrome tabs open. That RAM upgrade will net you a $400 increase though. The biggest question I have right now is the performance difference over the i5 and i7 processors. I'm not sure how these new 10th generation Intel chips will perform in the 13-inch MacBook Pro chassis. They should be more efficient and run cooler than the previous generation, but the old 13-inch already hit its thermal limit pretty easily. For now, I just have way too little information or experience to suggest the i7 model, so I would suggest waiting for the full reviews before you purchase. We should also note that even though the 13-inch MacBook Pro is new, there are also other options out there for you. First of all, this isn't the 14-inch redesign a lot of you were waiting for, and some of these updates, like the lack of a dedicated graphics card option, is disappointing. If you need dedicated graphics or want the highest end performance possible, and you can handle a bigger size laptop, you should try looking over at the 16-inch MacBook Pro. If you just need a basic laptop and you don't plan to harness the power of the MacBook Pro for video editing, photo editing, development, music production, and yes, even playing a few games, I would strongly consider checking out the MacBook Air. It starts at $999, and while the Pro is definitely a better computer for power users, the power could be wasted on some of you, which would make the MacBook Air the better choice. Overall, my biggest takeaway from this announcement is that Apple finally has a laptop line that makes sense. We have seen years of missteps from the Mac lineup, but with the addition of the new Magic Keyboard and doubling the storage, these become easier recommendations. But anyway, that's all the new information we know about the new 13-inch MacBook Pro. If you like this video, make sure you give me a like. If you want to see more from my channel, make sure you're subscribed. Also, don't forget to let me know in the comments below, what do you think about the new 13-inch MacBook Pro? If you want to support the channel out in any way, make sure you check out some of the links in the description. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.